If you haven't seen my previous theory titled Darkness Controls Ventus, I suggest you check that out first. Today's video relies on the idea that Darkness from Union Cross will go on to become Vanitas, and my previous theory circles around to explain why I believe that to be true. I promise you that my reasons are unique, so you'll enjoy it. Link in description, choice is yours. On to the video. Hey there everybody, my name is Chasm and I have another Kingdom Hearts theory to discuss with you. Let's talk about a potential relationship between the Master of Masters and Darkness. We know that Darkness knows the Master of Masters, but in what way exactly? I'm going to share my idea, and then I want you to share your own thoughts in the comments so we can discuss. So the very first thing I want to do is make sure all of you are aware of the situation with the names of the Master and his 6 disciples. We don't know the Master's name, but we know the names of Luxu and the Foretellers derive from the Latin words for the 7 deadly sins. Luxu comes from luxuria, which means lust. Ava is greed, Ira is wrath, Envy is envy, Gula is gluttony, and Aused is sloth. The only sin missing from that list is pride. The Latin word for pride is superbia. The Master's infamous black box has Key Super written on it, so the KH community seems to be in large agreement that the Master's name is Superbia or something similar in order to symbolize pride.
It's not fair. My plan was supposed to blow your mind with its grandeur. Your jaw should have hit the floor at my sheer genius.
So what does that have to do with Darkness? Well, as I mentioned at the start of the video, we're gonna assume that Darkness will be revealed to be the origin of Vanitas. If you want to hear my original ideas as to why, again please check my last upload, I promise you'll enjoy it. Vanitas is also a Latin word, and that word is vanity. And in biblical contexts, sometimes the sin of pride is referred to as vanity instead. And there's a good reason for that. Having pride isn't necessarily a bad thing, so pride is sometimes replaced with vanity because if we're talking about deadly sins, it's only appropriate to use a more negative connotation than positive. And these connotations exist in Latin as well. Superbia would be used as generally as we would use the word pride in English, but Vanitas not only translates to vanity, there are other negative characterizations attributed to the word such as emptiness, falsity, and deception. Pretty fitting for the character who is the embodiment of darkness and deceived Ventus by appearing to him in the form of Ava. But the Master of Masters simply prides himself on his grand plan to protect the light of the world. So Vanitas and the Master are two sides of the same coin, let's say. Alright, so let's pull it back now specifically to Darkness. In the very first scene that we ever met Darkness, not only did they mention the Master of Masters, they also gave the audience brand new information about what the Book of Prophecies actually is. That's a really big deal. The only people we would ever imagine to have such knowledge of the book would be the Master himself, his 6 disciples, and the Dandelion leaders. So is Darkness actually one of those people? I'm just gonna make this simple. Out of all those people, there's only one who I have any morsel of belief in, and that's Ava. But even that I have very little faith in because I believe that Darkness will become Vanitas. So that just leaves 2 alternative possibilities. 1. Darkness is and always has been some kind of supernatural entity of darkness. Or 2. Darkness used to be a human being, but that human is a character we've never met before. My gut feels very strongly that option 2 is correct. So who was this person and why do they know so much? I have a pretty confident guess. I think it's possible that Darkness and the Master of Masters used to stand side by side as students of the Keyblade. A few months ago we got a Union Cross update in which the Master revealed to Luxu that the Keyblade War has actually been going on ever since the Master was just a boy, which really confused everyone, but that's just how the series goes. Upon hearing this information, Luxu asks the Master if there were other Keyblade wielders besides him. His response was, well yes, there were others, but they don't really count. That's an interesting line coming from somebody whose name supposedly means pride. So the Master did say that there were other Keyblade wielders. I think it's safe to guess that Darkness was one of them, and there is a particular moment that makes me think so. As Maleficent and Darkness approach the room where the Ark awaits, Maleficent asks where Darkness learned so much about the Book of Prophecies and using the Ark to time travel and whatnot. Darkness says they learned it from an old friend. And I feel like the Master of Masters is the only person who that old friend could possibly be. Okay, so maybe the two of them do know each other from back in the day, but what makes you specifically say that they were partners in training? Earlier we established a connection between the names Superbia and Vanitas. Do you guys realize how important names are to Nomura? The answer is very. Let's group some Keyblade wielders together and analyze their names. We already covered how Lushu and the Foretellers' names are themed by the 7 deadly sins. Now how about Sora, Kairi, and Riku? Each of their names is a real Japanese word. Sora means sky, Kairi means sea, and Riku means land. Then there's the Wayfinder trio, whose names were chosen to parallel the Destiny trio. Their names are from the Latin language. Ventus means wind, Aqua means water, and Terra means earth. One trio left. And no, I'm actually not talking about Roxas, Axel, and Xion. They don't quite fit the bill in this way, which is okay because they all met as nobodies rather than humans, and Axel was like the last character to become a Keyblade wielder so far. So who is the third trio? That would be Ericus, Xehanort, and Yen Sid. I know it's technically not confirmed that Yen Sid officially trained alongside the other two, but come on, he totally did, let's not kid ourselves. So what do their names share? Yen Sid is an anagram of Disney. It's actually Disney flipped backwards. Ericus is also an anagram. You can rearrange the letters to get Square, who of course is the developer of Kingdom Hearts, and Xehanort. All you have to do is take the letter X out, then you can make 2 anagrams from it. Those would be another as well as no heart. Oh, but that's just a coincidence, right? I mean, why would Nomura put the X in his name? Well, that's easy, because adding an X to somebody's name and then making an anagram out of it is how we get the names of everybody in the original Organization 13. And the word another was actually the password that Terranort set for Ansem's computer when he took over. So yes, it was entirely intentional. I'll say it again, names are so important to Nomura. So let's talk about why this matters. Why would the Master's old friend be doing whatever it is they're up to? It seems to me that Darkness is currently an enemy of the Master. Why? Well, in part because of what Lushu wrote in Secret Report number 12. In the absence of us and our Master, a darkness arrived, one that shall surely lead the world to yet another demise. I used to take that line with a grain of salt because Lushu doesn't actually know all the details of the Master's plan, but after thinking about this whole ordeal from a storytelling standpoint, I think it fits that Darkness is against the Master. What do I mean by that? Well, the entirety of the Kingdom Hearts series so far has pretty much been a puppet show, with the strings being pulled by the Master. So in a way, this is not really Sora's story, it's the Master's. And if this story comes to an end with everything going exactly the way the Master wanted it to, that would actually be kinda boring. Because even though we've seen conflicts occur in the modern era of Kingdom Hearts, those conflicts do not conflict with the Master. He pretty much wanted those things to happen. So if that's just going to be the cycle every step of the way, then in the grand scheme of things, this story will be missing the most essential ingredient, real conflict. So when it comes to opposing the Master of Masters, I think Darkness serves as the plot device that begins the conflict. I mean, come on. The 5 Dandelion leaders were handpicked by the Master, but Darkness ensures that Ventus becomes a leader by making him murder Strelitzia. Another reason I make this prediction from a storytelling standpoint is because, as I made clear earlier, Kingdom Hearts parallels itself constantly. We talked about groups of Keyblade wielders and the names within them, but also, let's talk about some of the events that transpire between them. Riku, for a period of time in KH1, is a villain. He was manipulated by Ansem into embracing darkness. Terra gets manipulated by Xehanort to embrace darkness and ends up killing Ericus. The Sea Salt trio does come into play here because Xion ends up fighting both Axel and Roxas in different parts of Days. Now think of the Foretellers. Ossed throws hands at everybody, claiming that they're all traitors except for him. And of course, eventually the 5 unions enacted the Keyblade War, resulting in the deaths of hundreds, maybe thousands of teenagers. And then there's Xehanort, who, well, he did a lot of things. The plot of Kingdom Hearts is pretty much entirely driven by fractured loyalty. And consider this. After Xehanort explains to Ventus that he wants to use him in order to forge the Keyblade, Ventus runs off and confronts Ericus about it. And that's when we learned that Ericus knew about Xehanort's obsession with the legend of the Keyblade and the Keyblade War. Some point in time before Xehanort was publicly evil, he confided in his friend about his fascinations, and Ericus sorta hoped Xehanort would just grow out of it. Now, the roles would kinda be reversed here, but maybe the reason that Darkness knows so much is that his friend Superbia had let him in on his grand plans back when it was more like a concept. And perhaps the Master's attitude that he was the only Keyblade wielder that mattered back in the day was what drove the two apart from each other, and this caused Darkness to become an antagonist, kinda like Xion, Riku, Terra, and especially Xehanort.
Maybe I won't go as far as you. Huh? When the world needs a defender, they'll pick you, Ericus.
If the Keyblade War started when the Master was a boy, maybe it was the division between him and Darkness that started it. Alrighty then, so what do you think of all this? Would you believe that Darkness and the Master were training mates? What do you think is the truth behind Darkness? Let me know in the comments. I want to thank my subscribers. We just passed 100. If you want to help us on the road to 200, all you have to do is subscribe to Chasm and hit the bell button to enter the void, and you'll never miss an upload. I'd also appreciate a like on this video. And don't forget to check out my other theories. I'm on Twitter, feel free to follow and come discuss with me anytime at @itschasm. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Until then, I'm Chasm, and thanks for watching.